Hey, this is Team F. We're doing block transfer. You guys want to say hi?
Hey, I'm CJ.
They're all
Hey, I'm
so
Ernest.
I'm Andrew.
woohoo! Super. So every public company on Earth is required by law to have a transfer agent just to exist. And a transfer agent records a ledger that looks very similar to one like this. It's just a list of all the shareholders, or if a firm issues public debt, all the debt holders for a firm. And all it does is like who it is and basically how many shares that they have. And that's their entire job. It's just this big Excel sheet. And every once in a while they'll do something a little bit complicated, but the main gist of it is they record a ledger just like this. And when securities need to be transferred, that happens through the transfer agent. Now, the challenge is that this very simple process costs an average of $400,000 every single year. And it's important because you obviously don't want people, especially when the paper certificates, just copying them, or even with digital certificates. There needs to be someone to verify that securities belong to who says that they belong to, so that you don't just duplicate money. And it happens right now with a central entity. So there's one big central firm that acts as the transfer agent for a public firm. And they charge, like I said, a very, very large sum of money, about 400 grand a year, to act as this accounting solution for the 42,000 public firms who are required by legislation to have a stock transfer agent or a debt transfer agent. And this is fundamentally flawed because you've got public shareholder dollars that should be invested in the company for the good of the public company going to this private institute to do a little more than record an Excel spreadsheet of shareholders. And it's just an incredibly large waste of money. Show of hands, if you could raise your hand in the chat, has anybody ever interacted with a transfer agent? Anyone? And in the entire world, anybody? Anybody even heard of a transfer agent before? Okay, yeah, well, fair enough. If you call a transfer agent today and you try to transfer your securities, you're looking at talking to 4 to 7 people who all require full-time paychecks. And that money's coming from that firm, it's coming from your investment returns. And the cost of doing that effectively hinders the profitability of every single public company on earth. Now, it's not huge, but it's definitely a slight damper to the profitability of any given company because they're wasting the cost of many Bentleys on a very simple accounting solution. And a lot of times, the fees to transfer securities through this big central intermediary will cost $25 or even $50 per transfer. It is crazy. Now, to better understand this business model, oh my gosh, to better understand this business model, let's look at the key partners of a transfer agent and what we'll see in just a moment. Block transfers, it's just a transfer agent. So really the big key partners here are going to be those public firms, the ones that have publicly traded stock, publicly traded debt, and specifically in the United States, they're required by Section 17D of the Securities and Exchange Act of 1934. I'm so sorry, these are big words, but like I said, this is a business that is required by legislation. So this bad boy right here, this is the Securities and Exchange Act of 1934. This is the reason you have to have a transfer agent, because before transfer agents, like we said earlier, people were just copying certificates. There was an incredibly large amount of fraud, and it was one of the big reasons that there was that whole, Great Depression. It wasn't great. And so that's why you see a lot of regulation here. So big key partner is going to be the SEC. So transfer agents all report to the SEC, and we'll see that more throughout. Another really important partner is the way that direct shares are registered with certain financial exchanges like the NASDAQ or the OTC Markets Group varies transfer agent for the transfer agent. So very important to have good partnerships with OTC Market Group and other market participants, specifically through the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation, which I just don't have time to go through how that all works with you today, unfortunately. But those are very important key partnerships for the business of any transfer agent who are going to act as the regulatory reporters for a given firm. And then also, Because one of the reasons that it costs so much normally to issue and transfer stock is because you have to get surety bond insurance every time you mail physical certificates, which is an incredible inefficiency that wastes tons of money, not only on warehousing certificates, but insurance of mailed certificates since they act as bearer shares, which, again, I apologize, legal jargon. But those, at a high level, that's the key. The value proposition for a transfer agent for block transfer is that it's required by law, so you have to have it. It's pretty simple. The key activities, again, recording those records, and the key resources for our implementation. So what we've done is we've taken the transfer agent process and implemented it on a decentralized blockchain ledger so that there's no central point of failure. There's no huge security fault from one firm lying. And in addition, shares can be transferred 10 times faster. So you have 10 times better security, 10 times faster transfer of those shares on a decentralized network, and most significantly for the firm, it costs 10 times less. So you're really saving them an incredibly large sum of investor capital that can be used to actually go and benefit those shareholders. So the key platform for that is usually a web platform. You have a web platform for sure, so shareholders can work with it. And then you also have accounting and reporting for the underlying firm. And then, of course, blockchain. This is mostly through the Ethereum network, and there are other, I could talk all day. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go that deep with you today for time. In terms of channels for marketing, we're looking basically, we'll look really specifically at marketing in just a moment, but it's just general. A lot of it's referral marketing because you're marketing to high-level C-suite CFOs at public firms. And these are fairly uneventful relationships after the IPO because you're just refilling basically a checkbox for them. So it's really simple. In terms of segments, we have smaller public companies on the pink sheets, smaller firms. You have standard, normally traded public firms on normal exchanges in the US. This is stuff like the NASDAQ, the NYSE. And then transfer agents also handle direct share purchase programs, or if you ever work at a company that issues stock options, that's all going to go through the transfer agent. It's a very important part of the record keeping that they do. In terms of the costs, there are regulatory fees and reporting agency expenses, as well as overhead costs for the general accounting and record keeping. And of course, the revenue comes from the firm primarily. Again, there is also that fee from the book entry transfers, which we'll look at in just a moment. But you're looking at an average bill here of about $400,000 every single year forever. You can see more on our technical documentation here. I wish I could talk all day about it. In terms of timing, block transfer is really at the forefront of this technology. A lot of the resources that we use that are the core fundamental backbone of the block transfer protocol are absolute cutting edge. There are two protocols that came out this week that essentially equate to the entire backend. We've been waiting years essentially for these protocols to come out, and they are finally published, and there are a couple of very significant regulatory changes and protocols that come out in June that really allow us to fully implement the technologies that we have. So a lot of this, it is the absolute forefront of the technology development that is currently in the blockchain space. So this is just a screener of all the NASDAQ stocks. So again, every single stock has to have a transfer agent. So we just take a list of all the public companies, and a really easy way to market to them is you just kind of start filtering out by, United States companies. And then after you have that, you're really just going down the list because all of these firms are paying obscene rates for their transfer agent services. And really easy step, you just go and we'll look at some of the more of the marketing campaigns later on, but you can either do messages straight through LinkedIn, or a lot of times because they're public, one of the most effective methods we've seen is direct mail to the CFO of the firm who makes the purchasing decision for the transfer agent. You'll also see private firms when they IPO. For instance, this bad boy right here, IPO'd UiPath. They went public today. They raised, I think it was $55 billion, a very large amount of money, really exciting day. So when they IPO, they have to have a transfer agent. So you just, very simple marketing campaign. Hey, you have to have a transfer agent. We'll be your transfer agent for significantly less.
I cannot hear you.
Okay, I know someone else is supposed to talk eventually, but I guess we'll get to that. So this is an example of some of the marketing we'll do. You can see here we got LinkedIn marketing, so blockchain transfer agent. This kind of stuff really works effectively, as we'll see going through the statistics in just a moment. Um, a bill you 10 times less. It's a very simple selling proposition. Here you've got Facebook campaigns. Again, a very simple selling proposition. It just makes sense for them to use it. So you can kind of see how some of the marketing looks like behind the scenes. And so here we can see some of the results of those campaigns. Here we have a very, very low click-through rate on the ads. So you can see the average on these kinds of campaigns is about 1.25, and you'll see about a fifth of that on most of these campaigns here. They have a very targeted audience for these campaigns. The only people that really know who transfer agents are going to be those public firms or that handful of shareholders that interacts with the transfer agent on a regular basis. And so you have a fairly standard per link click cost here, but a very targeted click-through rate, which we'll kind of see as it makes a difference. And then, does anyone else want to talk?
Talk
Is that
about
clear,
your
everyone?
team. Yeah.
I know, I wasn't supposed to go
Team,
into marketing,
pe
so I don't know what's going
people
on
and
here.
cultures. Yeah. Talk about your team.
Oh yeah, you bet. So you're gonna have to forgive me. Our team in this class, Team F, isn't like the team working on this. We are working with tech students, so we've got one in particular, Abraham Lambda. He's finishing his master's thesis in applied math and cryptography on this same subject. So he's been a real. There's a couple of the tech kids, some rocket scientists. Um, I am leading the team, and then there's also a broad development, and a lot of it's open source development. I mean, there's a lot of developers in the team side. We see similarly here with the LinkedIn, very low click-through rate, um, which is just really, really nicely targeted ads. Um, and if no one else wants to hop in here, I can talk about the result rates. So we see about a 1.9% application rate. So based on our click-through rates and our cost per ads, you're looking at about $1,000 for every 2 applications and an average client lifetime value of about 250 grand. So it's got a nice kind of put-through rate there and a nice return rate on the marketing.
So in a business like this, it would be pretty hard to retain clients with competition being so heavy. There being so many agents available. So our plan for client retention would be to lead with a purpose. So like John said, saving you money that could be used to actually make a difference elsewhere in your business. 400 grand a year is a lot of money to save for anybody. Provide excellent customer service because that that tells clients that you care about them, and if they have an issue they can come to you about said issue. um, Leverage shareholder convenience, so like John said, it's faster to transfer using block transfer. It costs less, and just overall it seems to be a better option than what's available on the market. So we have to leverage that to the shareholders that we want to use our service. And also keep an open feedback loop, because along with customer service, it allows for healthy communication between the business and its clients. You can go to the next slide. Now, with that client retention, people are, of course, going to refer us to their friends. Different businesses will refer us to other businesses. So, word of mouth referrals are going to happen as a side effect of the business, just continuing from day to day. We could add an element of gamification later on down the road if we were to offer different services. So, maybe you could get rewards for referring people, and then those rewards could go towards another service, or maybe you could uh, get a discount on your services for the month or something like that. But as it stands, we would stick with word of mouth referrals because in this industry, that's just really how things go.
While using blockchain technology with transfer agents represents a large new market, there is opportunity for competitors to secure strategic positioning within this market. While block transfer is unparalleled in its work, as John mentioned, there are a few other companies making certain headway in this field. One major company is that of Securitize, which provides digital securities to a variety of firms. They have focused on marketing the time-saving capabilities of blockchain technology, but don't offer the pricing power that block transfer has. Similarly, Block Agent, a startup based out of New York City, has begun investing in this technology and has achieved SEC approval, however, has not taken any potential customers and have not developed a proper business strategy or plan. And one other company, OFI Asset Management, is a French investment and a management company. They have begun to use blockchain technology where transfer agents are used instead of fund admins. And this improves investor certainty, but they have yet to use the blockchain technology beyond that use. So while there are other companies using this technology, as mentioned, block transfer being one of the first marketable services, it allows it to harness first mover advantages and help secure its great strategic positioning. And if we go to the next slide, we'll see the total addressable market. And if you look, you can see the top 3 firms servicing the US public equity markets. First one being Computershare with around 40% market share. The next being American Stock Transfer and Trust. And the third being Continental Stock Transfer and Trust. And these account for about 70% of US public firms' transfer agents. And if we go to the next slide, we can look at Computershare's total available market. And we can see that the revenue is 1.2 billion. And if 48% of revenue were to come from the US, since that's where we've been starting with our US regulations, we could see a valuation of 576 million. And by extrapolating that number with Computershare's market share, you can see that there's a potential of 1.44 billion market value. So now we can move on to shareholder perspective.
So just real quick, why a shareholder or a company would want to use it is, like they've said before, there's more people in the market ever, especially with the COVID. Like 10 million people joined with accounts, investing accounts last year. Computershare, the biggest company with the largest market share, on Better Business Bureau, they have a 1 out of 5 stars. Most of the complaints are based on time to get your stuff back and just bad customer service in general. So with our company, it would be way quicker and much easier to get your stocks and move on.
Awesome. Well, I am super excited to break our time limit here. A lot of this we've mentioned, so I will leave it up to you, bad boys. One thing to notice is we are a two-sided platform, so you do have revenue, and there's a couple of complexities with how that's documented and how that's implemented on a distributed network that I just don't have time to go into today. So you do have both sides of that revenue. You also have a global network of public firms and traders. So the whole cyclical cycle, the network effects, the virtuous cycle are really in play here, because the more firms that use block transfer, the more traders will come to trade directly on the book, which is right now a very rare thing to happen. Therefore, there'll be more investor demand for decentralized transfer agent services, which will push the firms over into moving over to block transfer, which will then subsequently continue to increase investor demand as there are more securities offered on a decentralized basis in a regulatory compliant way. And you'll also notice here that this is a hybrid innovation and transaction company. And I'm getting a little bit here, so I will finish it up. I just had a trip to Boston. We were talking to some of the really big public firms that are based out of there. And one thing I really learned from that trip was about the chicken and egg challenge. What we found is the best go-to-market strategy is to seed our initial 4 to 5 clients, which would be pink sheet registered companies in the US, with free services for a year, thus build up a base for our platform, and using those 5 initial clients, move into the traditional space alongside the IPO market, where we have a significant advantage because there's no cost to transfer over when you're committing to an IPO. And then in the traditional space, most of the transferring or cancellation fees for contracts like these usually only amount to a couple dozen $1,000s, which is it really is immaterial compared to the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're saving them per year for the rest of their service as a public company. So yeah, you can see us at Demo Day. We're part of Startup Launch this summer, and so we'll update our progress there. So, and if you know anyone that loves coding, shoot them over.
Thank you. You wowed me. Get out of here. Okay. Thank you.